to meet so many great new contacts and people, and also Darth Vader, for example, in London. At the last event that was actually in person, we met the community in Munich, we met in Belgium, we met the community in Dublin, in Zurich, in Munich again, in Amsterdam. So basically all over Europe. It has always been really, really fun, and we've been happy to be part of the community, and we always like to give something back. So if you have look closely, all these pictures have something in common. There's a Lego set there. Here's another Lego set. Here's a VW camper van. So we usually bring a Lego set along with us for the audience to join us and to win. And also we brought one today. So today you can win this Lego Star Wars set. I think it's a very cool one. All you have to do is pay very close attention to what David and I are going to show you. And we've prepared this little quiz for you. So scan the QR code either now or later. We will also post then the link to the chat. Pay very close attention. With a little bit of luck, it can be yours at the end of the session. Good. So much for the important stuff. Now let's see, what have we prepared for you today? What are we bringing along? So you saw the title was No More SSRS, Electronic Reports and Copy Paste, all about document automation. We will first introduce you what does document automation actually mean. Then we will show you what is Docs42, what does it do, what does it stand for. And then David will show you some really, really cool live demo scenarios from finance and operations. We will look at invoices, at the setup of FO. We will look at the template design. We will look on entity reports. And then, because Docs42 is not just for FO, we can also show you some more scenarios from Dataverse, from CE, for example, and SharePoint. And at the end, there's time for questions and answers. And speaking of questions, David, I think there was something, right?
Yes. Dear listeners and watchers, I have a question to you. And that is, do you already know Docs42? Have you met us before? Have you worked with us before? If you could scan that QR code and answer us, we would greatly appreciate it.
Yeah. That would be great. So have your phones ready. It's always good for us to know if you know us already, if we have met in the past, if you're learning something completely new. Here's the QR code again. Feel free to scan it. Yeah, great. The responses are coming in. I'm just sharing the QR code again. Most people don't know us yet. That's good news, David. So we will show a lot of new cool things. Someone is a happy customer. Cool. Great to have you here. The more people that don't know us yet, maybe let's just wait a few more seconds. And just, yeah, great. Most people don't know us yet. Cool. So
perfect. More people to show.
To learn a lot in the next hour.
Yes.
Great. Good. Okay. So that was the wrong button. So now I need to click it all through. Good. But here we are. What is document automation actually? So basically, we have data coming from various systems, and we are working on business processes the whole day. So we have data coming from Dataverse, from finance and operations, from maybe Dynamic CE. Maybe you're also using BC. There's SharePoint in the background. There are also SQL databases still working, or you're working on individual files on Excel. So basically, on a daily basis, we're dealing with data, we're dealing with business processes. And usually when it comes to business processes, the outcome at the end of a business process, a lot of time, a document is very important. So for example, when it comes to sales processes, it's very important that you generate a quote and in the end, send an invoice to the customer so that you're actually paid. Or it's all about sending emails as well. So if you have maybe, for example, an order confirmation, send it by email. A report presentation. So for example, sometimes we have to get the data, for example, how much was sold last week, and you want to have a report at the end that needs to be generated every week. So there's lots and lots of different documents that needs to be generated on a daily basis. In a matter of, like, sometimes it's bulk letter, but they're actually reoccurring. And there's a huge opportunity to do some automation on that. However, what we see in real business life is that there's no automation. We see a lot of copy paste. And we sometimes are actually saying that this is our biggest competitor because copy paste, we get it, it's flexible, it's individual. I've been guilty of it too. I've been copy pasting in the past. But next to it being flexible and individual, it's costly, it's cumbersome, it's error prone, and it's only possible 9 to 5. So if you're really serious about your document generation, if you have a lot of documents, also especially speaking of documents with data from ERP, from finance and operations, copy pasting might not be the best idea. Then what we also see as a scenario is that there's some kind of like automation happening in the background. And that's when VBA is used, when apps are used, macros sometimes are used. That's also flexible and individual, and you do get some automation and less errors. However, again, only low numbers possible, only 9 to 5. And the problem usually is, what do you do if the person that has actually programmed those apps or those macros or VBA leaves the company? It's very, very hard. Then there's something else, which I guess a lot of you will be familiar with, and that's the SSRS document reporting. There is server-side automation. It's used from FO. It works 24/7. You do have a high performance. However, it's not at all flexible and individual. If you are in the position that you really have to design SSRS report, you might know the pain that it's very difficult to get good looking documents. They're kind of like ugly documents. So to say, corporate design needs to be done by IT, even though, for example, marketing would love to do it. And also data integration is a question mark, because yes, you can integrate data from FO reports, but what about some external data? For example, some your logos or some pictures you might store on SharePoint or somewhere else. It's not working. Good that there's a solution for that. And that's Docs 42. We really deal with document automation on a daily basis. That's all we do. And what we have seen and we've identified is that when it comes to document automation, there's usually 3 parties involved. There's the IT, there's business, and marketing. The IT knows, okay, we're using FO, we are having those entities, we're having these reports, where does my data come from? We might also use some other system. The business is very important because they know actually the content that should go into the document. So for example, they know what actually should be in the quote or in the contract or in the invoice. And the marketing is also very important because documents are always a form of customer communication. So you should have a really good and conform corporate identity. You should have your logo up to date and so on. However, in reality, we see, especially when it comes to FO document automation, that the IT is very heavily involved because there's a lot of programming, SSRS programming in the background needed, and business and marketing can't really take part in documents that's actually more like a business topic than an IT topic. And the idea of Docs 42 is to bring all 3 of them on a table. Yes, there's the IT. You can work on the integration in the background, but business and marketing can design their FO reports themselves within Microsoft Office, within Word, Excel, and PowerPoint, and it's very easy and very fast to design and adjust your documents with that. And David will show you that data. Then who are we? Who is Docs 42? So as I mentioned, document automation many times already today. We're a software product that focuses purely on document automation and document generation. Our design for our reports are in Word, Excel, and PowerPoint, and we're very flexible with the data integration. So today, big focus on finance and operations. However, we can integrate the whole Microsoft stack. I'll also tell you more about it later. We have around 500 customers that are using Docs 42 across all industries and all over the world. I will introduce you to some in just a second. And we have around 100 Docs 42 implementation partners. At this point, if you're a partner, please also reach out to us. We're always happy to expand our partner network because we ourselves, we don't do any service, but we can offer you great trainings and a very good partner program. If you are a consulting partner, just reach out to us. And yeah, some of our customers, how are they actually using Docs 42 for? For example, in manufacturing, we have ABB, and they're automating the sales and service reports. So what they do, they have like these huge machines, the turbo-loader machines. And if something's broken for the machines, the service technician goes there. They have an iPad with them. They might take some pictures there of the machine. They might note something down what's broken. They upload the pictures. And then in the background, Docs42 takes those pictures, takes data from Dynamics and generates a service report. And that's used on a global scale for ABB, for example. Then it's usually really all kinds of documents. We have customers generating offers, orders, invoices, which we will see today. We have waivers with barcodes. You can integrate barcodes, presentations, employment contracts, and so on. That is just an example in manufacturing. In retail and food, for example, we have Rewe, which is one of the biggest German supermarket chains. And what they do also in their Dynamics ERP system is that they, every time you purchase something from Rewe, it was actually in the background, the document was generated with Docs42. So all like the order confirmations are automated with Docs42. Or Transgourmet, they've introduced Docs42 and they've reached a break-even point after 4 weeks, for example, because they saved so much time where it was a lot of manual effort and programming effort before. In construction, for example, Baumit is using Docs42 from finance and operations. They've been using it for a lot of different documents in their ERP system. Construction is another Docs42 customer from Australia. So we're from Austria, they're from Australia, the other end of the world. And again here, for example, for constructions, you could also integrate maps, plans, and images in your documents. And then energy and utilities, for example, Energieallianz Austria, they're one of the biggest Austrian energy providers, and they create their invoices in a batch, and they create more than 3 million invoices. Those are just a few examples. Actually, any kind of document can be generated using Docs42. Then how does Docs42 look like and work like? I've mentioned before that the template design is Microsoft Office based. So the designers have an add-in, for example, within their Word. And here we can see that you could, for example, integrate textual data coming from FO, for example, but also pictures, dynamic charts, dynamic tables, conditions, calculations. There are so many things that are possible, and everything is designed in Office and can be designed by business users in Office. Then, of course, what's at the heart of each Docs42 document are the data sources. Where does the data come from? Of course, Dynamics 365, Dynamics Finance and Operations, but also still AX. If you're using AX, you can also integrate data from Dynamics CE, VC, NAV. That's possible. Dataverse, SharePoint, SAP, XML, JSON, any data source, and you can also combine those data sources. So, for example, in your FO reports, you might also want to integrate some data from your CE, maybe some marketing data, whatever, or some documents, maybe the terms and conditions are stored as a PDF from SharePoint. You can very easily integrate them in your FO reports as well.
Yes. And because there are so many possibilities with Docs42 on what technologies you want to implement, we have another question for you. And that is, what technologies are you interested in to combine in one document? Take data from and implement it with many other data sources. Of course, FO is a big part of today's presentation, but since there are more technologies in use in our everyday life, what else is there that you want to see us maybe present if we have still time?
I'm curious if someone will say FO. Let's see. Great. So I'll open here the form again. I'm going to share the QR code again. And here we have some responses coming in. Great. We have Dataverse. Cool. We can show you that. We have Power Automate, Power Apps. What a surprise, FinApps.
Makes sense.
Most requested, but also digital document signing. Cool. We have a scenario with DocuSign, which we can show. We have CE a little bit, BC.
Yes, since that question has already been asked, yes, it is possible to sign documents after generating them with Docs42, since we have an integration with DocuSign.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And we can show you DocuSign today. You can also integrate with other e-signature tools like Adobe Sign, Scribble, whatever. But with DocuSign, we can show you an example today. Cool. So DocuSign, we will show FinOps, DocuSign, Dataverse, Power Automate. That's all part. Great. Cool. Teams. Yeah, if we have time, we can also show you something of that. Thank you for participating in that. And let's continue. Good. So those are the data sources which you can integrate and where you can use Docs42 from. And now, very importantly, that you can integrate those data sources all without programming. It all happens within Microsoft Office. Again, within Word, you basically select in FO which report or which table, which entity you want to read, and then you select the fields, and then the fields are available on your right-hand side. You just drag and drop into the document, and then you can design them really just like a normal Word document. So you could just mark it and say this should be 12 and font Arial and so on, and then it will be shown like that in your report. Good. QR codes and barcodes can also be inserted with just a click. I think David will show you something of that live today. And also for the Swiss people joining today, you could also integrate the Swiss QR code. That's also a possibility. And when it comes to document input, of course, the output is also very important, what you can do with Docs42. So it's either Docs42 online or the Docs42 server. So it's available on premise or in the cloud. And basically, you could just create your normal Office documents, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, of course, a PDF, a PDF-A. You could create a PDF, store it on SharePoint, or share it to Teams. You could send it straight by email. You could also have a draft email, which you can send out yourself later on. You can electronically sign it. Yes, that's possible. You could print it. You could store it into any document management system, for example, Develop, Dropbox, basically anywhere where you would like to do that, because Docs42 is also always extendable, for example, through our custom output actions. You can always extend it. And Docs42 can be used independently. So all the actions you've seen on the slide before, that's just standard Docs42 functionality. But then you can also always integrate Docs42 with your, oops, that was too fast, with your workflow tools. For example, Power Automate, a lot of you are interested in that as well. We've seen, we can show you that, how that works. You could integrate it with Firestart, Nintex, K2, basically any workflow tool you are using or planning to use. So it's one tool across the whole Microsoft platform. And that was a lot of theory now. So David, can you show us that what I told is actually true?
Yeah, let's do that. Let me show my screen, and I will show you a basic FO scenario with all the Docs42 implementation and a little bit more than that. So, boop, and start a new session. And let's just open in our homepage in our standard FO environment, as you know and love it. Now, documents with Docs42 can be generated from multiple sections in F&O. Let's just take as an example the invoice journal, from which we could also normally generate documents with SSRS. However, how we set up this FO environment, we don't need SSRS. If I select just any invoice in this selection here and just open up preview on my screen, then we'll see that a sales invoice is generated. However, instead of the normal SSRS design, we see our own corporate design that we have implemented ourselves with a Docs42 template. You can see all the values that are implemented from F&O are shown in the invoice in this document right here. You can also see in the calculation right here that there are some things calculated that have not been in F&O before. In that template, this is dynamically calculated by the template itself. If we go a little bit down, we can also see a small section that is implemented by a different Word document that we can just drag into, into the invoice, and it gets shown immediately, just like anything else. If we scroll a little bit more down here, we can see that the invoice is sent with the general terms and conditions, which itself is another separate document stored somewhere else that we probably send with a lot of our other documents as well. And we can implement that right here in landscape orientation if that is necessary. The first one is in portrait, so that also can be adjusted. Now, how is all of this possible? This seems like magic, doesn't it? Well, if we go to our settings, so if we go to modules and system administration, we can see that there is a completely new section if Docs42 is installed. It is called Docs42. There are a lot of things you can configure regarding the servers and various email options and parameters. For us right now, the most important part is the report section. This is where you can set up what kinds of reports do you want to generate, and for what company do you want what report to be generated, so there can be a differentiation in that. Let's take a look at the sales invoice that we have just generated and look at its setup. If you go right here, we can see that we can differentiate between multiple templates depending on what language we want it to be generated in. We have one for Russian, we have one for German. However, the default language when we want to generate any invoice is the English template right here. Now, we can see right here, our template here is stored in a SharePoint page. This could be different for your end. If you are more on the on-premise ending and you want templates stored in your server, then you can put your server template location right here as well. However, all we show in this scenario is on cloud, and therefore we also use SharePoint Online to store templates and documents. So let's just take a quick look at how the template itself looks in SharePoint. So the path is, it's on this website, so Dynamics 365 in the FO templates folder. So, oops, that is the wrong screen. Move. This is the right page, Dynamics 365. If we go to FO templates, we can see right here the template that we used to generate what we just saw. So let's open it in Word, so we can also see the extent of the Word add-in with which you would probably want to design. Oops, that's the wrong one. With which you would probably want to generate this. Okay. Let's try this again. There it is. All right, so as you can see, there are a couple of things that are probably a little bit different from the usual Word things you would see normally. First things first, these small little blue and green squares are the fields that we can implement. This is where the data comes from. These are our data sources and the fields from those data sources. If we click on Docs42 up here and then go to Insert Data Fields, then we can see what data sources we have implemented in this template and what fields we can put in there. This is something we can decide ourselves in those data sources, what data should be accessible to us. And yes, that is everything that can be immediately put into the template. So as a proof of concept that it is really easy to change any template up, let's search for the invoicing name. There is the field, and let's just drag and drop it right here. So we have some sort of change in our template, and we can see that change immediately in F&O if I just show you right afterwards. As a bonus, we can change how this invoicing name is shown. Of course, there is a lot of formatting things if you have some different numbers or calculations from different systems and different cultures. However, you can also implement images, barcodes, Word documents, PDFs, even HTML files, and regular HTML can also be encoded. You have a lot of options for what fields you want to implement. Let's just take this invoicing name right here and display it as a barcode with, I guess the dimension of 50 should probably look quite well. Let's see if we can generate it locally. This is also something that is possible. And let's just wait for it to connect to FNO, get the data, and then implement it as we want it to be. Perfect. So you can see instead of these small little blue squares we saw everywhere, it is replaced with data, took from FNO, and right as we wanted it for the entry, we just generated a few seconds ago in FNO itself. You can also see the QR code we just dragged in with drag and drop. Regarding this small little section right here, I just told before, also this terms and services is on here as well. You can see that this is an example of a data field that is implemented as a Word document from the same folder that this template is in, so also from SharePoint. If we take a quick look at this one, it should be this Word document. Yes, this is what we put into our invoice. We can also change that up, and we can also see that change in the template immediately. So let's say instead of a wonderful trip in Switzerland, let's go to the Power Automate D365 Summit. I think, oops, Summit. I think that would be a wonderful trip.
Amazing.
Let's save that and try and generate another document. You can see that, yep, it is very true that this Word document is used to implement data, and yes, that change arises immediately. So, of course, this document is stored on cloud on SharePoint. So that change should also be immediately visible in FNO.
Before that, someone just asked a question about the source of the data field list and how to add actually the custom data. Maybe you can show just the data map design now.
Yes, real quick. That is a good point. Thank you for asking. Forgot about that. So if we take a quick look into the data map itself, this is where you can define what data sources you want to use and what data you want in this document. And we can see most of it is from FNO report data. Of course, we have data sources that are just for or from FO entities, so we are aware of that. And a couple of little bit data tidbits are coming from some Excel data sources that are as well stored on the SharePoint, as well as some account data from CRM, and all of that can be easily implemented. We can also see up here that we have a wide selection of data sources installed on my machine. There are more to choose from. However, you can see that there are SharePoint data sources, SAP data sources, we have the Swiss QR code. So there are a lot of things possible, and I guarantee that they are easy to implement. I hope that answered the question.
We got a thank you in the chat, so yes. I think you did.
All right, perfect. Now, let's go to FNO and see if that change is actually visible. So I actually stored the invoice journal in my favorites. Boop, boop, boop. Boom. Not only can we see that our invoice is generated, we can also see that the QR code we just added is also in here. And if we scroll down, yes, indeed, the change we made in the other Word document is also visible. And yes, all of that very quickly interchangeable and easy to edit. Now, there are some other things we can do in F&O as well. I have just shown you that I can show the generated document on my screen. However, with the use of print management, we can actually set up a lot more complicated calls, a lot more complicated actions. The print management we have set up in our system is that it immediately sends me an email with the generated invoice. It also stores that invoice on the SharePoint in form of archiving. So you can set up archiving as well, either automatically or like here, if you want to send an email, it stores it automatically on SharePoint as well. So a quick detour back to SharePoint. If we go to this folder right here, this is where we store all the invoices that are getting generated. And we can see it just a few seconds ago, the invoice I just selected is also now stored in SharePoint and visible to everyone as archived data. If we go to my inbox, we can see that, yes, I have generated a new invoice, and I can see that right here as an attachment. Also, the email body is yet another Docs42 template stored on SharePoint that I have used to generate this email body with, to also implement a little table with some HTTP or HTML design. So that is also very possible and a little bit nicer to look at than just the plain old email we are used to. And if we take a look at the generated PDF, we can see that, yes, indeed, this is the invoice I just created. Alrighty. If you are interested in how this email body looks, doesn't take very long to look at. If I go back, I think this should also be in the F&O templates. I'm not quite sure which one it is, but I believe the body one does look promising. Yes, I've opened the German email body, but this is how that one looks. Again, its own document that you can generate and design as you would fit it to be.
In the meanwhile, first of all, you got some compliments that it's a great tool and fantastic.
Thank you.
A question on how do we deploy these changes to different FO environments? So I think that's with the deployable packages.
Yes. So yes, there are updates with in form of deployable packages that you can install yourself, and you're free to update at your preference. Many people install the newest version and then are happy with that for a little while until there is a feature that they really want. For more information regarding that, you can see on our website a really extensive resource for all of our data sources, but definitely the F&O documentation on our resource page is very extensive and probably answers all the questions that I can't even think of. So yes, that is a great way of informing yourself of more possibilities. Also, you are free to contact us at any time with our contact form, and yes, ask if any of the features you're looking for are possible. Alrighty. I guess as the final little thing I want to show off in F&O, I've shown you before or in the template that we differentiate between report data sources and entity data sources. And those of you who are a lot more familiar with the in-depth technical aspects of F&O, you know that there is a big difference between report data and entity data. If we take a quick look back at Docs42 parameters, we can see that there is its own section for data entities where we can define documents that are purely generated by entity data and not by report data, if that is of need be. So an example for that in our end is the vendor fact sheet. If we go to our vendors and select any vendor on our end, go up here, then we can generate a template for our vendors. We can display that generated document again on our screen as we are, as we've seen it before. However, there are a big selection of things where we want this document to be. Where it ends up, we can print it immediately, we can save it as a file, send it via email, or store it to SharePoint again, and then we can define where on the SharePoint it is saved. So let's just show off the generated document first. Boop. This is our vendor fact sheet. Again, its own template stored on our end on SharePoint. Yes, as beautiful as ever. And if I generate that document again, however, I select the SharePoint, then I can select on what SharePoint site I want it to be stored. And then also I can define what format it needs to be, either in what folder it needs to be, or how it should be called. Just for demonstration purposes, let's just say vendors are really fun as a file name. Generate that. And then that should be saved as well on our SharePoint. Maybe I was too fast. Let's reload the page. There it is. A few seconds ago, vendors are really fun.pdf. There you go. And if we look at the PDF, yes, that is the same document we saw on our screen, the same document generated by Docs42. Now, that is everything that I would share regarding F&O today. However, since you all answered with various different technologies you're interested in, Lisa has some other scenarios prepared for you that you might also like to see.
Yes, thank you very much, David, for that demo. So yeah, we saw the power of Docs42 really in FO document automation. But usually in a company, you're not just using FO as a system, but you might also be working with Dataverse. You might also be working with SharePoint, with Dynamics, with Power Automate, and so on. And we wanted to show you a few more examples of how Docs42 can be useful for you also in your other systems. Good. So I would like to show you in. That's the wrong one. Here we go. In FO, not in FO, in CE, a scenario. And this is going to be a scenario about quote generation. And what do we have here? We are here in a quote entity in CE, and we want to sell solar panels. And what do we have? We have here a product like a table with 3 different products we want to include. We have the quote ID, we have some customer information, and so on. And now I want to generate the quote. The thing is that if I want to generate a really, really good and compelling quote, just a document with a table and 3 lines and some customer information might not be enough. It really needs to be a compelling, nice looking, well-designed document. So what have we done in that case, in that scenario? We're combining CE with SharePoint. So we're using this as our database, but then here we have our quote ID, which you can see here. And for that, we actually created a folder in SharePoint where the project team uploaded their relevant documents we want to include in our quote, in our final quote in the end. So one of that is a cover letter. Of course, that's also possible for your FO documents. So you could also integrate such kind of like documents for your FO reports, for example. Here, it's just some sunshine hours. Here we have an Excel project plans, for example, like the service team, they don't have access to our FO or to our CE. They just calculate something in Excel, like how much the installation would cost. We have a PowerPoint slide. We want to integrate some explanation. And then here we have another Word document. Good. And I want to generate my quote document now, and I have the Docs42 integration up here. For example, I can work with the Docs42 pop-up where I can say, okay, I want to generate a quote, and I can first select my languages. In that demo scenario, just have my English templates. And here, once again, I could say if I want to send the sales quote by mail, if I want to attach it to my CRM entity, if I want to just generate it as a PDF and download it, or if I want to dynamically choose a format. I say I want it as a PDF, so not a PDF, and I click on OK. And now in the background, again, it's taking a Docs42 template. It's filling in the data here coming from Dynamics and also from SharePoint. It's generating the document and it will download it here for me in a second. And that's done using the Docs42 Dynamics CE solution in the background.
Yes, while it is still loading, we have another question. Sorry for misunderstanding the first question. Thank you for clarifying. The question was, do we move design changes into FO somehow? Do they need to be deployed? And let me clarify that no matter what type of data sources or what you want to generate in those templates, everything is stored on those templates. If you want to generate QR codes or Swiss QR codes, or diagrams, whatever, that is all in the template. Nothing needs to be extra deployed on F&O just to generate some sort of aspect in that template. Everything that is generated in there will be successfully shown and stored and processed in F&O as well.
Yeah, so it's basically the design is taken away from FO. The design is happening in Office, in Word, so that's separate from FO. But the data logic in the background that's coming from FO. So basically, you do the design where it's really easy and fun in Microsoft Office and not within FO and by programming on the reports. Yeah. Good. And then in the meanwhile, the quote document was generated, and we can see here a document with up here, there's a logo. We have here the address of the customer. We have here the first Word document we've seen, a dynamic table, which would expand or collapse depending on if we have, for example, 5 products, it would have 5 lines. If it was just 2 products, it would just be 2 lines. That was the Excel file, which we've seen and where I've changed it to 12 hours, the PowerPoint presentation, and then here the last Word document. Okay, and that was done using the Docs42 solution. Now I have something else. So maybe, did I close it already? Yeah, we have a discount of 60%. I think that's like, we are kind, but 60% is a lot.
That is a lot.
The salesperson, I wanted to change that. And I'm just changing that here within the system because we always say also the truth should be in the system, not in the document. I'm saving it. And now once this is updated here in my system, I could go back and regenerate my document. So I could then send it by PDF, send it as via email, for example, and so on. But actually, I don't need to think of that. I don't need to go back and regenerate the document because what has happened now in the background, as soon as I changed the discount, or if I would have changed something else, a Docs42 Power Automate flow was triggered that regenerated my document with the updated discount, and it has actually now saved my document to SharePoint. Let's have a look to my SharePoint. I'm going here to my sales quotes, and maybe I was also a bit too fast for it to be there already. But basically in the background, a flow is triggered. And yeah, here we go. A few seconds ago by me, because we're using Azure Active Directory, we have dynamic metadata here, and we have a quote here updated. And if I zoom in, we can see that here the discount is 20% now instead of 60. So that was updated with a flow in the background, and we have a premium and as well as a custom connector for Power Automate. In case that's interesting for you. Good. So that's flow with a Dataverse trigger. That was Docs42 from CE Classic. Then you also mentioned you're interested in electronic signature like DocuSign. And let me show you that. We have here an example with our contacts. We have an employee contract example, for Alison Bauer. We want to hire her as a developer. She gets a salary of 10,000 euros. She's going to be an employee of ours, and now we need the contract for her. Up here, once again, we have the Docs42 integration. I could just generate it again and return it as a PDF, or I could send it straight to Alison via DocuSign, which I'm gonna do for another contact for the demo email address. Let me just see where we have Michael.
While you search, the question was, if I add a new field into the template, is it updated by the normal user? Do you need a developer? No, if there is a new field that you want to add to the template, you can do that yourself. It doesn't need any developing skills or knowledge to apply changes to the template. Anyone from the marketing or business or any other user can make changes to the template as well. And that is very easy to do. Also, if the data source itself is updated and gets new fields, all you need to do is press a button. The data is refreshed. You get all the new fields as well. And then you can drag and drop them into the template, calculate them and format them how you want it. It doesn't need development skills to change a template.
Exactly. Yeah. Here, the contract, what I can do is I can see the contract via DocuSign. So now, again, the document is generated based on a contract template now. And now our the employee, Michaela, who we want to hire, she will receive an email by DocuSign with the document in the attachment. So, and then once again, this is an example with DocuSign, but you could use any other e-signature tool here. So we can see, we can review our document. And then this is the employment contract for Michaela Mitarbeiter. We can see here the data from Dynamics, the salary, she's going to be a developer. And down here, she can simply sign it. This is sign, I click on finish. And now the updated document is, so the document is updated with the signature and is once again provided here. So a Docs42 generated PDF with the electronic signature here for Michaela Mitarbeiter. This is how that would work. Okay, and then I think I want to show you something final, because I also saw that some of you were interested in Microsoft Teams. There's one more thing I can show you, and that is done with the opportunities. And now I'm not generating a document based on a Word template, but actually based on a PowerPoint. And so it's actually an opportunity. So we have some current situation here, some data from Dynamics and as well from SharePoint again, what we do. And now what I can do is I can generate the PowerPoint at first, or let me first change something here, because we also have a flow in the background here that's doing some updates. Let me do that in the meanwhile. And while the flow is being triggered and generating the PowerPoint and sending it to Teams, I'm also generating it here again. So now it's taking a Docs42 PowerPoint template and it's returning the document then here on my screen. And in the background with Power Automate, another flow was triggered that also generated the PowerPoint and send it to a Teams channel. So here we have a proposal. So this is data from SharePoint, from Dynamics. So really nice looking PowerPoint generation and PowerPoint document with different data sources automated with Docs42. And if I go to the sales teams channel, we can see here that was just received. And this was actually an email by a Docs42 flow. And you can see here that was also designed with Docs42, and in the attachment, our PowerPoint. Good. I think that covered a lot of the scenarios people wanted to see and said that they were interested in. Now, if there are some more questions, feel free to still post them. There's just one final slide where we wrap up a bit, and then we have time for the last final questions. Basically, Docs42 document automation. What kind of advantages do you get? We saw intelligent, high quality documents. What does it mean? So we saw that you can really easily update your documents. You can integrate different sub-documents. You could have pictures, QR codes, calculations. You could have conditions and so on. All of that leads to intelligent documents. It saves you a lot of time. So I know with SSRS, like updating the design can take a lot of time. It's a lot of effort. So with that, you will save that. The design in Word, Excel, and PowerPoint, so your business users, the designers don't need to learn a completely new system. So they're familiar probably with Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. There are a few, of course, new things to learn, but they know the system. Then it's very flexible. We've seen today that it's one tool that can be used across the whole platform, and also like outside of Microsoft, for example, also SAP, but also SQL databases and so on could also be integrated. Then your CI, you can finally be CI conform and be very individual. You could have your up-to-date logo, you could have your up-to-date font and so on. And you're following Microsoft and ERP trends with our Dataverse integration, with going away from silos to really combining everything. Docs42 is the one tool that does it all. Good. And now it's time for the questions and answers. And for that, I think I will leave the QR code here so you can still get the chance to win the Lego set.
Exactly. Just a quick reminder, if you scan the QR code and fill out the quiz, you have a chance of winning the Lego Star Wars set just by participating in the quiz. Alrighty. So we already have a couple of questions. I will answer the one below that interests multiple people, it seems, and that is, do you need a developer if you need to extend the data source in FNO? The answer is that depends on your FO environment itself. That is probably less of a part of the Docs42 section of the tool, but rather what data do you have in FNO and what data do you want to provide to the Docs42 part of the implementation. If it is entity data that you want to implement, then no developer is necessary because all the entity data is directly added in Docs42 if you select that data source. If you select a report data source, then the FNO, then it needs to be defined in FNO what data this report can have. It is an FNO internal aspect that I'm not quite sure of myself, to be honest. But yes. Signatures out of FNO should be possible as well, since you can send any DocuSign or any signable call from FNO as well. Although I haven't seen that scenario yet, so that's a good question as well. And joining data between different tables is again something that you would do not in Docs42, but rather from the system where you want to take data from. So that would also be something you would have to do in FNO itself or in BC or wherever you want to take data from.
However, for example, you could also, of course, then link and make relationship between different data sources. Like, for example, in CE, if you have like the quote entity and then you have the quote detail entity, basically you can just filter it. And then as long as you have a common identifier, you could also like link one table to another like that. So I think it really depends on from which angle you see that question and the data, like you want to integrate that. Yeah.
And also, if you want to just make checks or display data depending on different conditions from different data sources, that as well is very possible just with simple checks that you can set up in the filters of the data sources, or just in the slides itself, or on the pages themselves. There are a lot of ways to use the data and interchange them, or make them interact in ways that make your document generation optimal and how you exactly want it to be. And if there isn't a pre-made point-and-click feature for it, then you can use dynamic fields where you can actually code the features yourself that you want with the fields that you want to work with. So even if our out-of-the-box tools don't give you what you need, you can easily make it yourself with a couple lines of code with dynamic fields as well. Can you use data from ER data models? ER is
electronic reporting.
Oh, electronic reporting. I am not sure, since that is not my field of expertise, but that should be a data source that is possible.
Yeah, I think that's a question we can take. We're going to take away with us. So if you still have that question, if that's relevant for you, please make sure to text it to us so we can take it with us. Here's our contact details.
Yes.
And we can make sure to answer them afterwards.
That is a very good question as well. Yes. We have a contact page where you can also ask us questions like that, and we would be happy to see any of those questions in there. Alrighty, I think that is about as much time as we have. So thank you so much for listening to us and looking through our presentation. And yeah, I hope you liked Docs 42. I hope you liked our demo. Again, if you are interested, please contact us either with the contact form on our website or directly. We are happy to respond.
Exactly. Yeah, and good luck for winning the Lego set.
Yes.
We'll contact the winner afterwards. Yeah, and you will get it delivered right to your doorstep. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lisa. David, joining us all the way from Austria. So once again, thank you for that great presentation on how to solve your problems of reporting with Docs 42 across Dynamics and Microsoft 365. And your last chance to apply for that Lego set. It's a fantastic prize that everyone gets excited about. So you've still got a few more minutes to apply, scan the barcode, and apply to win that prize. So once again, big thanks to Lisa and David for that fantastic presentation, and hope to see you next time very soon.
Yes, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.